Proverbs chapter number 30, I am reading verse 15 and verse 16 as our text. And I have come to Proverbs chapter 30 because next year I'm wanting to go a different direction. And so we're just kind of picking and choosing a few verses. And so tonight, Proverbs 30 and verse number 15, where it says, "The horse leech hath two daughters, crying, Give, give." And if you've ever had a daughter, you understand that. "There are three things that are never satisfied, yea, four things, say not, it is enough." Here they are: the grave, the barren womb, the earth that is not filled with water, and the fire that saith not, it is enough. Now, last week we noted that there is a pattern that the writer uses in this chapter as a means of emphasis. Got a little bit of ring up here. 5 times in this chapter you will read something along the lines, "There be three things, yea, four. There be three things, yea, four." And it's simply a Hebrew way of making a point, a figure of speech, using language that is designed to get your attention. There are three things, yea, four. And in verse number 15, there are three things, yea, four, that are never satisfied. 4 things, and he lists them in verse 16, that are never satisfied. Now, verse 15 begins with a strange statement about a horse leech. A horse leech. And I'm sure that you came tonight wanting to know what a horse leech is. And there's very little information that you can find on a horse leech except that a horse leech does not actually feed on horses or large mammals. I'd have no idea why they call it a horse leech. Apparently nobody else does either. But Wikipedia, so you know that this is true, Wikipedia says that there are somewhere around 700 different species of leeches. And leeches have a mouth at each end, and they attach to the host, and then they just suck blood out of the host. So they are blood-sucking leeches, and a leech never gets enough. A leech never gets its fill of blood and says, "I don't need any more." Once it attaches to the host animal, it never lets go until it dies. So this leech has 2 daughters that says, "Give, give." And because it's such a strange verse, it has lent itself to some very wild interpretations. Who are the 2 daughters of the horse leech? Or are they anything? You know, commentators, they try to guess at things that the Bible doesn't tell you about. You fall on dangerous ground. So one commentator said that that's actually death and hell, those 2 daughters. Somebody else said, no, it's heaven and hell. That's the 2 daughters. One commentator even said it's a vampire. I think he missed it there. And one commentator actually did say that it's reminiscent of, if you have a daughter, she's going to suck you dry financially. So that's what something. I understand that, but I don't think that's what that verse is talking about. Nobody really knows, and besides, that's not the point anyway. The writer reaches into nature, and he selects an insect. Is a leech an insect? A bug? Whatever a leech is. And says that here is something that is never satisfied. And then he immediately moves into 4 things that he says never have enough. So it's quite clear that all of these things are illustrations of somebody that is never satisfied. Somebody that never has enough. And the word that would be used for that would be greed. Now in verse 16 he names them. He says, first of all, the grave. Death is never full. No matter how many people die, the grave will always want more. It's never satisfied. And then he mentions the grave and the barren womb. Now the word barren is key. This is not a woman who wants to keep having babies. This is a woman who is unable to have children. And when a young woman wants to have children, that desire is so strong that she can't just will it away. We hear it in the cry of Rachel, give me children or else I die. There's been many women that have felt that. That desire is so strong that that woman that wants that child, that nothing else in life really matters. So the grave, the barren womb, and then the earth that is not filled with water. No matter how much it rains, the earth will want more. In the summer, you can have 10 inches of rainfall one weekend, and next weekend, the earth and the ground will be parched and be dry. So the earth is never satisfied with the amount of rain that it gets. And then he says, the fire that saith not, it is enough. Fire never just stops burning. As long as there's fuel, as long as there's something to attach itself, as long as there is more wood, it doesn't burn 1,000 acres and decide, I'm done. I think I'll just stop here. It never does that. As long as there is fuel, it will continue to spread, it will continue to burn, it will continue to destroy. So here are 4 things that are never satisfied. They never have enough. And when we bring that into the moral realm, what we have is greed. Because greed is the vice. Greed is the attitude that never says enough. I finally have all that I want. I finally have all that I need. Greed never does that. There's 2 words that are very similar. It is the word greed and it is the word covetousness. Coveting is used a lot more in the Bible, but I think that both words give you the idea of the same attitude that is in the heart. To covet is to desire something that belongs to somebody else. Greed is just to acquire as much as you can get. So a man finds a nugget of gold on his land. And so he spends years plowing up the 10 acres trying to find one more nugget. That's greed. The other man just wants the gold ring that's on your finger. That's covetousness. So one is greedy, one is covetous. Both are dissatisfied with what they have and they want more. That's greed. Now, I know that this is the Christmas season. And it is the season when Grinches talk about greed more than any other, but let's just talk about it. Not just in the context of Christmas, all right? But let's talk about it in the context of every other time of the year. If you make New Year's resolutions, and many people do, and it's kind of a reset, and I do, but if you are the kind of person that makes New Year's resolutions, then one of the more common areas of New Year resolutions is in the area of money. Some people have already been looking at, boy, this year was tough, but boy, next year I've got these financial goals, and I'm going to get out of debt. I'm going to start an emergency fund. I'm going to contribute more to my 401k and get it back, whatever it might be. We evaluate and we reset and we make resolutions. We are a nation and a world that I believe is on the brink of a financial collapse. Now, I'm not an economist, all right? I'm not an economist at all. But our government has spent us into bankruptcy. We just this past week passed another spending bill in the middle of the night. I think it was $1.7 trillion spending package. It was 3,000 pages long, which means nobody has read it. In the spending bill, we are sending another $45 billion to Ukraine. In fact, Zelensky is over here right now to say thank you and to make sure the Democrats get their cut. We are sending $7 billion to LGBTQI programs, 0 for border security. That's in the latest 1.7 trillion. And I'm not an economist, but they're pointing to a housing market collapse next year. You're probably going to have some foreclosures, and Feds have raised interest rates, I think, is it a 15-year high? I think it's what it is, and inflation has hit all of us. The junior bacon cheeseburger that used to be 99 cents at Wendy's is now $3.49. That's inflation right there. Ought to put some extra bacon on it for that. This is what we live in. And I can't predict the future, but it sure seems like that we are on the brink of some financial pain. So it may be wise for all of us to be wise about our money. If you have credit card debt or consumer debt, you ought to make a goal to get out of debt just as fast as you can. Somebody say amen right there. So what do I do? Cancel subscriptions. It is amazing how many things that we subscribe to, and you know, I have an Adobe.com subscription for $9.99 a month. I don't use Adobe. I can't find it. I looked yesterday, hit the thing, and I'm trying to, where is this Adobe account? Where is it at? And you got Amazon Prime, and you got this. So cancel subscriptions. Go on a budget. Don't eat out. Whatever it has to be. But I think that we ought to be wise about our money. And some of you, you're really, really good at it. But some of you are really, really not good at it. But here's where it all starts with. It doesn't start with math. It starts with the heart. It starts with being content where you are living right now. There's a thing that's called lifestyle creep. Do you know what lifestyle creep is? Lifestyle creep is that you're living at a certain level, but then you get a raise. You start making more money, so your lifestyle creeps up to that. And then you're making more money, your lifestyle creeps up to that. And people that are wealthy, they resist against lifestyle creep, all right? They're content to just put more money away, and so just keep driving the old car and wearing the same brands, and don't let lifestyle creep take over. And building wealth and having financial independence is not just about math, it is about the heart. Because you can't make enough money to satisfy covetousness. You can't build a big enough business to feed greed and discontent. So you have to learn financial principles and set goals and budgets and all of that. But you also have to guard the attitude of greed and covetousness from coming in our heart. Money is amoral. There's no right or wrong to it. It doesn't have a right or wrong nature. It's just an object. But money is a dangerous object, so the Bible attaches warning labels to it. Right. You know how that everything you buy now has a warning label, huh? And they're ridiculous. And the warning label is to protect them from a lawsuit from idiots. Well, the Bible puts warning labels on money. We're interested in what money can do for us. The Bible warns what money can do to us. And the Bible gives us examples. Achan that coveted the Babylonian garment and the wedge of silver. Judas, who betrayed Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. Ananias and Sapphira, who lied about how much they sold that land for. Balaam, who prophesied against Israel for the silver of the Moabites. And the Bible warns us of money. Proverbs 17 and 15 and 27. He that is greedy of gain troubleth his own house, but he that hateth gifts shall live. Ecclesiastes 5:10. He that loveth silver shall not be satisfied with silver, nor he that loveth abundance with increase. This is also vanity. One of the problems that we face is that we get so much of our philosophy of life from the world. Now I've read a lot of financial books in the past. I listen to financial podcasts a lot. I'm a big Dave Ramsey fan. If I did everything Dave Ramsey said, I'd be a whole lot better off. But I've read all of the books and what have you. And it's one thing. It's one thing to learn the nuts and bolts, okay, and to use their wisdom. But that's not what I'm talking about when I'm talking about philosophy. The rule of 72 works whether it is a Christian explaining it or whether it is a heathen explaining it. But you must not buy into their philosophy, the thinking of the world. For example, the world's philosophy is, well, it's my money. But a Christian knows that nothing that you have belongs to you, it belongs to God. You may think it is your money because you went out and you worked for it and your intuitiveness and your job and what have you. But I'm telling you something. God gave you the strength and God gave you the wisdom and God gave you the skill. God gave you the job. He gave you the health to perform like you do. And if it weren't for God, you wouldn't have the ability to make two plug nickels. And we understand there is a difference between ownership and stewardship. And the core of all financial principles is that you are not an owner, you are a steward. When money becomes a spiritual subject and not a financial subject, that is when you will begin to recognize what a steward really is. That's my money. The world thinks that my net worth is an indicator of my net wealth is an indicator of my net worth. So many people derive their self-worth by the car that they drive, right, or the clothes that they wear, or the neighborhood that they live in. Right. The poorest person in the world is not the man who has no money. The poorest person in the world is the man who has nothing but money. The true measure of wealth is not in the things that you have. It is in the things that you have that you cannot buy with money. You add up everything that you have that money can't buy. That's the true measure of wealth. So I say to you, beware of thinking like the rest of the world. Use the wisdom of the world in learning how to budget and to plan and to save, but don't buy into their philosophy, because a Christian thinks differently from the world in every regard. There's four things that are never satisfied. Now, there's a lot of passages I could go to tonight to illustrate, to demonstrate, to teach this matter of greed. I'm going to take you to one, and I'm not going to be long because of the subject matter, but I want you to go to 1 Timothy chapter 6. 1 Timothy chapter 6, familiar passage, and this is the most pronounced warning in the Bible against greed and covetousness. Has nothing to do with December. Has everything to do with July, April, May, August, every day of the year. But 1 Timothy 6 and verse number 6, but godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into this world, it is certain we can carry nothing out. And having food and raiment, let us be therewith content. But they that will be rich fall into temptation and a snare, and into many foolish and hurtful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition. For the love of money is the root of all evil, which while some coveted after, they have erred from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. The overarching warning for money is found in verse number 10, or verse number 10. The love of money is the root of all evil. The issue is not money. The issue is our heart. There is no danger in money. There is a danger when you love money. So the passage is not about finances. The passage is about greed. It is about covetousness. And if you love money, if you love the things that money will buy you, there is nothing that you won't do in the pursuit of more money. It will lead to all kinds of sin. For the love of money, people have committed every conceivable sin it is possible. They will take bribes. They will pervert justice. They will take advantage of the poor. They will lie. They will cheat. They will steal. They will abuse. They will commit fornication. People have killed for the love of money. They will teach false doctrine for the love of money. And if you are consumed with the love of money, you will do whatever it takes to get more of it. By the way, if you are consumed with the Lord, with loving the Lord with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, all your strength, then you will set all things aside in order that you might pursue the Lord more. And you cannot love and serve both together. You can't love mammon and love God. I didn't say that you can't have it, but you can't be in love with money and love God too. And there is no sin that is excluded from the list of what people will do for the love of money. So what you have to do is you have to deal with the affection. And if you deal with the affection, then you've already won the battle. And by the way, the love of money has nothing to do with how much you have or don't have. There are poor people who love it just as much as rich people. There are rich people who don't love it. There are some rich people who don't flaunt what they have. They're not consumed with the pursuit of getting something more and something new and shiny. They don't take pleasure. Their greatest pleasure is not the things that money gives. They don't sin in order to make more money. I have met people who don't have any, but they're obsessed with getting it. So it's not whether you have any or whether you don't have any. It all has to do with your heart. Now, how do you know? How do you know? Well, this is a great. Somebody texted me this afternoon and said, "I can't wait for church. It is always a great pick-me-up." I'm sorry, not tonight. All right, I apologize for that. But how do you know? How do you know if we're just talking about our heart tonight? All right. How do you know if there is greed in my heart? Well, you know that you love money if you can never have enough. Yeah. Can you say you are satisfied with what you have? Now, that doesn't mean that there are not things that you can't desire. There are not things that you don't need. But it doesn't really make any difference whether you get it or not. It's no big deal. You can buy a new car or build a house or get a new gun and not be greedy. But does your life consist of always having one more thing? I can want something but still be content if I don't get it. I never know what I'm getting for Christmas because I don't ever care. Okay, it's just whatever it is. Just surprise me. I said, "Man, what do you want for Christmas?" I don't know. I can't think of anything. I have a satchel. That satchel has been with me all over the world. I have carried that thing for probably 20, 30 years. It's a great satchel. And it's scratched up and it's been through airports and it just whatever. And sometimes when I'm traveling, I'll see somebody with a really nice satchel. Oh, that's a really nice satchel. But my satchel is fine. It carries all the books and the laptop, and it does just fine. I have a sneaky suspicion that I'm going to get a new satchel for Christmas. I just have a suspicion that I am. If I do, it'll be wonderful. If I don't, well, the old one is a good satchel. It's got many more years of use to it. Do you understand what I'm saying? You can want something, but be content if you don't get it. You may be in a low-paying job and you need to make more money to provide for your family. That is not greed. But could there ever be a point where you said, "I really don't need anything else. I'm good with what I have"? You know you love money if you can never have enough. And then you know you love money when you want others to know that you have it. You get pleasure by wearing it, by driving it, by showing it off. I think that you ought to seek prosperity in order to provide for your household, that you might give to the poor, that you might finance the work of God, that you might support missionaries. There's a lot of things that people with money can do that people with money cannot do, but never purchase a vehicle based on what somebody else thinks. Never wear a name brand clothes or move into a neighborhood because of the status. You know you love money when you resent giving it. This is the season of greed, but this is also the season of giving. We have somebody in our church that we have two people, but we got one person in our church that every year plays kind of a secret Santa deal. So this person will call me about a month before Christmas. And this person will say, do you know who in our church has a special need that is not going to have Christmas, been laid off, whatever it might be? And I think about it and I will say, all right, here's a family that's going through whatever. And this person will buy gifts, like a box of gifts for people there. And then they come and give it to me, and I go to those people and say, Merry Christmas. I had nothing to do with it. Somebody else did. They did it last week. And so Sunday I was able to tell a guy, I said, come back here in the office. And I told him, I said, it wasn't a financial need this year. You know, these people are destitute. It was a different kind of need. And somebody just wanted to be a blessing to somebody. You are the one this year. And here you go. Here's a box of presents. And that's a real blessing. I've been on that end many, many times. I've been able to say, I didn't give this, but boy, it's a real blessing. Every time it rains hard, Ron Sutek will text me. Because a couple of years ago, some of the guys went over there and we put a roof on his house. And every time it rains hard, he will text me and say, I am sitting in my house dry. Thank you for the largest gift anybody's ever given me. And all that we did was just roof his house. That's all that we did. Okay, it wasn't that big of a deal. I've never had a man just say thank you so many times over the same roof. Huh? That's a real blessing, isn't it? You know you love money if you resent giving it. Yeah. You say, preacher, what's the danger of the money? Look at the text real quick, and I'm going to be done. I'm going to be done. Here's what the love of money does in your heart. And I'll just list them. It ignores true gain. Look at verse 6. Godliness with contentment is great gain. In a man's pursuit of ungodly gain, it blinds his eyes to true gain. The danger is not that you accumulate mammon, is that you miss something that's more important. The truly rich man is the man who is content. That is gain. Here's the second problem with the danger of loving money. It focuses on the temporal. Verse 7, we brought nothing into the world. It is certain we can carry nothing out. Every nice thing that you're going to get for Christmas is going to break, wear out, fade, get lost, go out of style. I'm not putting a damper on Christmas, but just realize that everything you get is going to be temporal. Yeah. And no man ever covets another man's righteousness. He covets his boat. No man ever covets another man's good character. He just wants the car that he drives. The nature of greed in our heart is that it only focuses on the temporal. And then it obscures the simplicity of life. Look at verse number 8. Having food and raiment, let us be therewith content. Well, boy, that'd sure bear life down to life necessities, wouldn't it? Food and raiment? I don't know anybody that is satisfied with that. I'm not. But there is a blessedness in the simplicity of life. So many people live their life running like a maniac from one place to another, buying stuff they don't need and sticking it on the shelves and putting it in the garage and renting a storage building. And it's amazing how much stuff that we have that is absolutely useless. Doesn't do anything, doesn't take us anywhere, doesn't provide anything. It's just stuff is what it is. And what we've done is we have replaced people with things. People don't have conversations anymore. Entertainment has replaced conversation. The substance of life is relationships. Here's what the love of money does. It leads to sinful entrapment. Verse number 9. They that will be rich fall into temptation and a snare. It's a trap. Greed takes you somewhere that you don't want to go. You're going to wake up one day trapped with no way out. You think about somebody addicted to gambling. Think about somebody addicted to pornography. They're trapped in that addiction and they cannot find a way to escape. I tell you what, the love of money, it does, drowns men in judgment. Verse 9 again, into many foolish and hurtful lusts, which drown them in destruction and perdition. It drowns men in judgment. So I say, all right, preacher, what's the cure? I got the message. Greed. I got the message. I've already bought the Christmas presents. We're going to have a great time. Not putting a damper on Christmas. This is not a Christmas message. So what do? I don't want this sin in my heart. Well, I looked at this thing in verse 10. Here's the problem in verse 10. The love of money is the root of all evil, which while some coveted after, they varied from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. And that's where we normally stop reading. That's the problem. And if you stop and close your Bible there, then all that we have is a problem. But there has to be a solution. So I read one more verse, verse 11. But thou, O man of God, flee these things and follow after righteousness, godliness, faith, love, patience, meekness. Thou, O man of God, flee these things. Run away from it like you're trying to escape an axe murderer. You say, what does that look like? Maybe you cut up your credit cards. Maybe you quit buying everything you find off of Amazon. Well, isn't it amazing? Isn't it amazing how much stuff that we just create new bills? But you recognize the dissatisfaction in your heart, and whatever the practical step is, you mortify that desire in your flesh. And then there's something to follow after righteousness, godliness, faith, love, patience, meekness. You can't just decide, I'm not going to be greedy anymore. I'm not going to be dissatisfied anymore. It has to be replaced with a cultivation of godliness. You run away from some things and you run to some things. You spend your life pursuing that which is good and that which is godly. It is the principle of replacement. Evan Edwards was a minister in Smyrna Beach, Florida. He's the founder and the president of Aslan International, A-S-L-A-N International. It's a ministry that supposedly did outreach in Turkey. He claims on his bio page on his website that he's been arrested over 50 times in Turkey passing out Bibles. He claims that his ministry has passed out over 500,000 Turkish New Testaments on the streets of Turkey. Great ministry. 5 days ago, he and his son, Joshua, who is 30, were arrested on charges of bank fraud, visa fraud, and conspiracy to commit fraud. In the spring of 2020, the height of COVID, the pandemic, all the businesses had to shut down. So the government had this payback protection plan, PPP, that you could apply for a government loan and they would give you money, you can pay your employers and kind of stimulate the economy. You knew how all of that worked. Evan Edwards applied for an $8 million loan. Claimed that they had 486 employees with a $2.7 million a month payroll. And he got $8 million from the government. He and his son promptly went and purchased a $3.7 million mansion right outside of Disney World. Tonight, he and his son face a maximum of 30 years in prison for each count. For the love of money is the root of all evil. 4 things that are never satisfied. They will never have enough. Is that your heart? I don't think it is for most people. But if you are up to your eyeballs in debt, you can't get your feet on the ground financially. You always got to have the newest and the shiniest and the best. Maybe this is for you. Not Christmas. Just set Christmas aside. But the other 11 months of the year. But if there is greed in your heart, it will never be satisfied. Double your salary. Get a great bonus. It will never be enough.